Leave, you're welcome to leave.
Thank you guys so much.
All right,
Thank you.
Homework to do.
Congratulations.
We lost
Now it's empty.
Now it's empty.
You cleared us out.
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
We need to have Madeline come more often,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, she brings a crowd.
and not Mr. Jones.
He said he dressed up for us tonight.
He did. He doesn't bring a crowd though.
Small
Yeah, you
breeches,
got
yeah.
pants on.
Long breeches. All right, next item is going to be introduction of the new Lake Jackson Historical Association Director. And that's going to be Susan Buell is going to make that presentation. Yeah.
While she's
Yeah.
on her way up here,
And Lindsay, you can go ahead and come up with her.
Can we do this backwards?
You can do however you want to do it.
Okay, all right.
oh,
Okay, so you're going to talk about, you're going to do the update?
I just want to
Okay.
give you a quick update.
Okay.
Because I think Lindsay wants to say a few things anyway. Thank you for having us on the agenda, and I wanted to continue to thank the city council for supporting the Alden B. Dow Office Museum. You know, you pay our utilities and upkeep the grounds and pay the property insurance, and we are grateful for that. You'll be pleased to know that the project is coming to an end, I think this week. We've reframed the big picture window with rot-free wood, we hope. The whole flooring has been micro-topped with concrete. The south wall, all the windows have been removed, and the wall has replaced it to stabilize the building better. We have installed a new ADA-compliant bathroom, and probably most noticeable is the paint job.
Yeah.
The whole interior and exterior has been repainted with the original colors that Alden B. Dow selected, and they're very bold and a little bit wacky, I think. but,
Yeah.
Yeah. So our next task is to provide memorabilia and historic content before we reopen. So, with that being said, I want to tell you a little bit about our new executive director. She comes to us from Houston. I forgot to mention, Mr. Broadus has had a private tour of the Alden B. Dow.
I did. It was
Office
quite nice.
Museum.
Uh-oh.
A couple weeks ago. It was several, maybe a month or so ago.
Yeah, it was. at one of
I'm
the
I'm
farm-
anxious to see
one of-
the full-blown update.
Yeah. Anyway, Lindsey Scoval comes to us from Houston. Her educational background is in history, and most of her work experience has been in marketing and project management. Plus, she has very pleasing interpersonal skills, and the board felt like that was a great combination for the role of executive director. So, Lindsay, if you'll come up and say a few words, and thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you're doing on the office building.
Thank you all so much for having us here tonight. I'm thrilled to be here. As Susan mentioned, most of my adult life I've been in the city of Houston, so I already love the Gulf Coast area, and this is home. But I grew up in small town Nebraska, and I have been desperate to get back to a smaller town, a place that's just everyone is involved and everyone is excited, and I have found nothing but wonderful people here since I've been here for about 2.5 weeks now, and I think tried every single restaurant and coffee shop in downtown, and I will keep doing so, but it already feels like home, and I'm thrilled to be here, and I cannot thank you all enough for the warm welcome.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're going to move to item 4. It's the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting and Distinguished Budget Presentation Award.
So if Tony and Pam can come up, or I knew this was going to happen. They're going to fight over who comes up. Neither one wants to come up. So we have 2 awards tonight. The first one is the award for financial reporting, and this is, really the hard work of the finance department. Of course, Ken, our master, comes in and has to help and put it together. But all the documentation that's required and going through everything for the whole year expenditures is not done without these two ladies and their staff. And so they're the reason that we get this award. And it's recognizing just, keeping our books in order and being transparent with our citizens.
Thank you.
So,
Thanks. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Well, how many years in a row y'all gotten this?
27, I believe, 28.
Very good, thank you.
then the next award is the Budget Presentation Award, and that includes, again, those two ladies, in addition to Megan Milford and Laura Marie. We add these three members to the team, and then all the directors and all their managers putting, the budget together, and that, that process is sadly getting ready to start
Again,
in a couple of weeks before we start capital budget. And again, we're recognized, for that. And that's really our communication of our expenditures and our, not so much expenditures, but our goals and objectives and what we want to accomplish for the next year, and trying to communicate that in a way that our citizens can understand and makes it readable. And they spent a long time on putting that together. And so that award recognizes their effort and the standards they're meeting that is set across the country. So my hats off to all their hard work.
But it's even more important to note this was Modesto's first budget as city manager, so it was his first letter, and we still got it.
that's right.
Half of the amount that Bill didn't. We still got it.
Yeah,
Very good.
I would have gotten a phone call if we had.
Yeah, if you wouldn't have gotten it. All right, very good, very good. All right, next item is declaration of conflict of interest, and this is where any member on council can state if they have a conflict of interest of any item on the agenda for tonight. Does anybody have conflict to announce? Not hearing any, we'll move on to consent agenda. We have two items. We have item one is approve the minutes from the February 7th, 2022 meeting. And then item two is accept board and commission minutes from Keep Lake Jackson Beautiful and also traffic. Do I have a request to remove any item from the consent agenda? Not hearing so, I'll take a motion on the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve items 1 and 2 on the consent agenda as written.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Move on from consent to regular item. We have, okay, this is the Jose Sanchez show. He's going to be up here for a while. I already told him he needed to bring a chair up here, but he didn't.
We put him on early as well because he has to go. He lives in League City. He's chosen not to live in Lake Jackson, so he cries about having to go home late.
Okay.
All right.
First thing we're going to do is we're going to discuss and approve the proposed sick leave pool policy.
And this is a new policy we're introducing, trying to help out our employees in this, but actually have them put in something of value to them. For employees that contribute to this, they got to put in their vacation time in order to contribute to a sick leave pool. And this would assist folks that are new to the city, or maybe they've used all their time up with other things. They've used all their vacation or sick time up, and this would be another option for them to have some leave time available in order to be getting paid while out on leave. And somebody asked about short-term disability. This is our answer to short-term disability is sick leave time for city employees. There is a long-term disability, but that's after 30 days of you not receiving a check. With the sick leave pool, you still have to go 1 week without receiving a paycheck in order to receive this. And there's a maximum of 90 days that you can be in the sick leave pool.
So, we've had this discussion for a long time among staff of what, how to work this and recommend this. And I think what Jose has come up with and what the directors have kind of have come to an agreement on is that, on occasion we'll have an employee that just exhausts their sick leave. They may have not been here maybe 3, 4, years and haven't had the chance to really build up their sick leave bank, because we do allow employees to, build up a generous sick leave bank, but it takes a while to get there, especially if you have a catastrophic illness.
Or if you
And
got
so,
kids.
or 5 kids, or 5 kids. So it gives a chance for other employees, if they've exhausted it in all their vacation, to donate, to them. We have, and we talked long and hard about donating sick leave or donating vacation leave. We've chosen vacation leave because donating sick leave is, right now, it's not paid upon separation. So it's not held as a accrued liability, and I'm sure Pam's going to cringe if I say something wrong here, but it's really not a liability on the books. If we allowed employees to donate sick leave, all of a sudden then it builds in this pool and then it becomes an accrued liability that is just at some point in time is going to be tapped. Vacation is, we have to pay it, even at separation. So transferring one day from an employee donating that day to another pot increases no financial liability for the city. And so it's moving it 8 hours, to another 8 hours and stuff. So that was probably the biggest reason why we chose it to be donation of vacation versus donation of sick leave. Because I'll give myself an example. I have quite a bit of sick leave saved up. If I, left, tomorrow retired, I could donate 900 hours, to this pool that then the city would have to probably pay someone at some point in time. Where if I left tomorrow, council does not have to pay me on that. And so we didn't want to have that accrued liability on the books that way.
And we wanted the employees that do contribute to have some skin in the game with their vacation. That's something tangible to them with that.
And we do allow employees, currently it's a little cumbersome. An employee can sell their hours and then donate them to someone, and I'll approve those. Our current policy says that you have to at least take 6 days of vacation leave before you can sell. Someone will come in and says, hey, I've only taken, 24 hours. Can I sell a couple of days to give to someone? I will approve that, but it's their money. There's no way that I can assure that they go to me. That's just out of their generosity. So we still allow that, but this just makes it a little bit easier if someone wants to donate to the pool. What we can't do, Jose cannot do, an employee cannot donate these hours directly to any one individual. It goes to the pool.
So
and
is
it's
it
available for someone.
Sort of like the county is, we donate 8 hours. Is it a one-time donation? Can you?
No, so it's a minimum of 4 hours, and you donate.
And are you encouraging the employees who are donating to still maintain a certain level in their own bank, or not touching
I
that?
would find it very hard to believe that they would find them donate. I don't think anybody's gonna go down to zero
No.
or something they're not gonna have.
And again, it's vacation leave. The employees have the right to, if within scheduling, take all of their vacation and stuff, as long as we can get the shift done. But an employee theoretically could donate all of their vacation leave if they wanted.
And also, do you have a board that's set up to, who can get the,
No, we're gonna follow the same guidelines. If you didn't hear, it is about the FMLA, Medical Leave Act.
okay.
If it would qualify for that, and it'll be the personnel department making those calls.
So does the county does sick leave or county does vacation?
We do
That's the
sick
idea.
leave. County does sick leave,
So,
not vacation. They
right,
do-
that's what I
they do
thought,
sick
so I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
In the city where I was, cities I was previously, we did vacation for the same fact of the liability.
Right. And it could be that, I don't know this to be true, but it could be that the county carries their sick leave a different way than the
They
city
may,
does.
Right.
and
Yes,
they
they do.
may pay
They do.
they may pay sick leave on termination as well.
No,
They don't.
no.
Yeah, I would just, unless someone advises me differently, it gives me another, I would not advise that. I think the financial liability, of being out there and converting would be too much for us. It could be, today, if we had this policy,
3 people leave. You could have 27 hours.
last year I'll use 3 for example. If Bill left, Sal left, and Pam left, we could have enough hours for all the employees to take off forever. I mean, they have a lot of sick leave, and they can donate it all. And so all of a sudden, this pot is full, and it's just, I mean, it's there.
Right. And the vacation is accrued over time? It's not like January 1, you get all your hours for
Monthly.
the year? You get,
All our leaves accrued monthly.
right, monthly, okay.
Sick
So you don't have to
leaves
worry
on the first
about
check and
somebody
vac-
getting a block, donating it, and then quitting the next day and.
Well, we'd have to
It-
pay out the vacation
Right.
either way.
Yeah,
Right,
paid
but
out.
only because it's accrued monthly and not
Yeah.
in a block.
So would that help, like if an officer get hurt in the line of duty? I think,
In
was
my
it
view,
Hogan,
would be
Hogan,
different
he,
Because it's workers' comp.
I think, yeah, well, Hogan, he had to go on workman's comp, and then workman's comp, you only get, what is it, 75% of your salary, or is it?
It's
you
around,
don't get it
it's
full?
60, 65.
65%.
No, we would not do supplement. We don't do supplement.
You can't do that. It has to be. a
So when would
FMLA.
that kick in then?
On an FMLA, if somebody's about to have a child, they haven't been here necessarily a full year. Let's say a little bit over a year, and all they have is 12 days. But they gotta take off more days, and with the parental leave, this could supplement that to take them off the whole time that they can be out.
So it wouldn't help if an officer got hurt, or if one of the guys on the trash
would-
truck got hurt,
It would help an officer if they got hurt, if it wasn't
work.
workers' comp and they weren't getting anything.
Okay,
But if it's.
so they have to use all their
they-
resources and
Yes,
then.
everybody has
and
to
then it
use
would
all
kick
of their
in.
resources first, all their sick leave and all their vacation. And it has to be a qualifying event for this to be tapped, just as there are other leaves, would have to be.
Which
But
is all, that's all pretty standard though.
yes,
Right.
but no, it's not, we do not do supplemental leave for workers' comp.
So the workman comp is not taxable though, right? So that's the difference. Even at 60%, you would still,
You still clear a little bit more,
right,
but then you still gotta pay your insurance and other.
right, but that offsets the 60% rule. You're not paying the social security and income tax on that money.
Correct.
So I think that was how it was designed.
And you gotta set up with Uncle Sam at the end of the year.
Any other questions about this? If not, I'll take a motion on it.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Move on to item 2, discuss and approve an updated workers' compensation policy.
What we did on this one was just revamp the previous policy that was called accident and injury leave. And it was something that was needed to have for this. And pretty much defines that whenever somebody goes out on workers' comp, that they're instantly at the same time doing FMLA. So somebody can't come back from workers' comp and they've been off 5 months and then, oh, I need to do FMLA. You can't work like that. It has to run concurrently at the same time. And also there's an actual time frame that you need to put in there, the 180 days. And a lot of places, I've been part of this before, you used to put in 6 months, but you actually have to count the 180 days. And it actually counts weekends. And we actually had one not too long ago here to be sure you're on the right side of the law whenever that comes into effect. And it's just clean up language for us.
And this is what we've been running the FMLA concurrently anyway, because what we do is, if you're on an extended leave, let's say workers' comp, we activate FMLA and we send a letter notifying the employee that your job is, FMLA it protects your job for a certain amount of period of time. We activate that and run it concurrently. So we tell an employee that even if they're hurt, that their job is protected. But what we don't do is we don't run workers' comp and then give them the full amount of time and then do an additional, then activate it once it's exhausted, another, let's say, another 90 days and, protect the job. An employee can still come back from workers' comp possibly if their doctor releases them. That's something they can do the jobs, but we just don't keep it open for 9 months. At some point in time, we have to tell a person that we've got to fill the position and get the work done.
Would
And
this-
then the maximum FMLA, so your FMLA technically could
12
expire.
weeks.
It's 12 weeks,
It's
so
12
it could
weeks.
expire before the workman's comp does.
Correct.
Yes.
Is more likely.
Yes.
The young lady I discussed with you at the park, the rec center, this would have helped her out, correct?
No.
No, because we followed it to a T of what
Yes.
practiced before. And that's what we did here, is under. And we went above and beyond on that one.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions on this one? Take a motion on item 2.
Move for approval on item 2.
Second?
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any comment from the audience? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Move on to item 3, report on the HGAC temporary workers group, job grants.
Well, we applied for this back in January of '21. I don't think we got anybody here to the city June, July, and we've had a total of 13 employees from HGAC, Houston Galveston Area Council, with the workforce through G&A Partners. They work as a temp agency for us. They're not employees of ours at any sorts. They're outsourced to G&A Partners, but we have hired one of the 13 so far, and in the process of trying to hire another one. It's just another outlet for us to, one, have employees that do not cost us anything, and they're getting helped out through HGAC through this grant, and just trying to get more folks in the door.
So the hope is that we bring them in as a temp, and they work out, and they want to come work for us.
Yeah,
So
and I think that's.
through
go
this
ahead.
grant, they're paying for all of their salary and any benefits or anything that they have, if they are covering benefits for.
They're doing workers' comp, everything. I mean, workforce is even providing them clothing. If they need gas cards to get to work, they're doing that as well, getting boots.
How
And
big is
then-
the pool? Like where are they coming from? Galveston, Houston?
It's,
Our area?
they're using the workforce here in town to try to source folks, but I know they're coming as far as Houston right now to come, because I don't know what their
How
process.
long period of time is this?
I have it for 6 months, and I had requested 25 employees. And we haven't gotten to that number, and we're just trying to explore different options as well, because right now, I think I have one that's in their process right now to try to get approved. At first, it was taking about 3 months to get approved for this program, and now it's getting down to 3 weeks, but we're just trying to find folks that qualify.
Yeah, I think
this
it took them a while to get probably the grant rolling, through the
Yeah.
system, so
But within-
it's really started to gear up.
Within the 6 months, you could make a decision to hire them or not?
Are we making a decision to hire within the first week, sir?
Okay.
I had a gentleman show up that was a welder, and promise you that same day, our welder told us that he was retiring. We had him on for a week, and we hired him the next week, full-time on our staff. And he's working out great.
Yeah, I would say that some take a little longer to evaluate,
Yeah,
but every once in a while, someone's like, oh, this is probably a really good person, we don't want to lose them, and we'll extend it off. We've
Yeah.
had at least one, we've had one
Yeah.
that we wanted to get them in the fold.
But it benefits the city financial to take your time on that, correct?
It does.
yeah. But you don't want to miss out on that in
Right,
person,
you don't
because
wanna go somewhere
they're probably
else.
not just shopping
Run 'em
us.
off.
Right.
Yeah.
Run them off.
Yeah.
And that's the whole intent of the grant, is to see,
Place these employees.
they're playing matchmaker, and hopefully they can find them permanent employment,
Yeah.
so.
No, it's working out really well for us, and hopefully we get more folks through it and fill our positions. So right now, we're a little bit over 20 employees down.
Do they screen anybody, or somebody comes in there and they send them automatically down to here?
All I do is review their resume. Whenever we make the offer, that's when we screen them. We do the background drug testing.
But when HGAC sends them down here, do they?
They just get qualified
Okay.
to see if they can qualify
Okay.
for that
They
grant.
don't do anything. Okay.
If
So how
not, that
much
would take
longer do
even
we-
more time.
Um,
That would even take even more time.
More time. How much longer do we have on this grant?
I would say
You
a
said it was
year.
6 months, or or do we have access to the grant for 6 months, or is it until the grant funds run out?
I think until the grant funds run
Okay.
out.
Okay.
But I'll give an update on that if it's different than that.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
No, we just wanted to let you know, I know, Jose really has bird dogged this, to get it working and staying with it, so, I don't think a lot of cities are taking advantage of it, at least down in Brazoria
Houston is
County.
the only other city that has even a number close to ours of 25. Most cities ask for 2 or 3. I was lucky enough, I've done this before with a previous city, and I got around $800,000 when nobody was going after the money.
Wow.
After I can, why not ask? The worst I can do is tell me no.
Right.
I was a little shocked when he said, he was asking for a city manager.
Keep that in my hip pocket.
No takers yet?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to item 4. This is submission and
Go for
approval.
driving home.
Submission and approval of the racial profiling report from the Lake Jackson Police Department as required by state law, Code of Criminal Procedures, Article 134.
I think that's a mistype, 2.132, I believe it is.
Okay, compilation and analysis of information collected, and this is going to be Chief. Okay.
So yes, every year by March 1st, we're required to report to the state information that we collect on every traffic stop that resulted in a citation or a written warning, some action taken on our part. For us at the police department, that process is usually done through our report management system, through our citation module. Then at the end of the year, when we review it periodically throughout, because sometimes you find mistakes. And so it's a lot of hard work on the part of the patrol lieutenant. He's kind of my right-hand man in putting this together, so I appreciate all the work he's done this year. I'm trusting you had an opportunity to look over the report. Probably the most noticeable thing, because it's not a real exciting number game from year to year, is that just the sheer number of stops compared to last year was not as high as it has been in some years, but kind of a bounce back from the COVID. Our reaction to that and being a little less proactive. We're kind of getting back to business as usual now. So that being said, aside from going by number, if you have any questions according to the report, I would be happy to ask them. For my review, every year when I go over it and I get the new numbers, what I'll usually do is pull several years going back and just look and see if there's anything that strikes me as different, outliers. Like I said, there are a lot of corrections that have to be made. It's a checkbox thing, and sometimes accidents are made. But for the most part, the numbers percentage-wise, regardless of the increase or decrease in the number of stops, pretty much remain the same for us.
So Chief, I made this comment, I think last year as a citizen, I had read this report, and I can say the same thing again. You guys have had over 12,000 stops, and I believe there was one instance of physical interaction with the.
Yes, there's a checkbox on there if there was a use of force in regards to the stop that resulted in bodily injury. So actually, you'll see the number in 3, and I would actually contest that because, and again, this is only use of force associated with the traffic stop. There's 3 listed, really only one of them. All of 3 of those 3 incidents, which we look over them quite regularly, they all had to do with DWIs and resisting arrest, but they were DWIs that weren't initiated from a call for service. They were actually violations that we witnessed while running traffic, stopped them, and then initiated a DWI investigation.
But out of 12,000, over 12,000 stops, I think that just speaks to that you guys have created a culture of being able to de-escalate situations and to really interact with our public in a positive manner. So thank you for that.
Well, I certainly appreciate the fact that that's noticed, and I think it does go to doing the job, but doing it professionally, being respectful. And so I appreciate that note.
Thank you for watching over.
No, I found it. When he referenced the 3, I guess that's on item 13.
It's
Okay.
6 page, almost
Yeah,
at the
so
last.
it's like the last one.
Right.
I see it now. Okay.
Years past, really just the totals in each of those categories was required if you had a body camera or camera system in your car. Since then, everyone's required now to do a full report, which you include the report, which includes a lot of subsets to each category, along with the data for percentages that calculates that analysis that you'll see, which is kind of helpful to me because regardless if they go up or down, I can see statistically or percentage-wise if there's any real change.
Does every officer have a cam?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And just for reference, all the boxes that you have to check for this report, is that done by the officer after he's completed the stop? And is that in the car or back at the office or combination?
Yes, sir. Actually, a little bit of a combination, but most of the time through our citation module, they are prompted once the citation is finished to
Okay.
go through this report. That's the easy way. It's already in there, and then we just need to figure out how to get it to spit it out when it's report time. There are exceptions. If a ticket writer's down, a lot of times our motors do their citations by hand, then they have to go back and do a manual form, which then we convert that into the system.
All right.
It all used to be bubble sheet, and it took a while at the end of the year, so.
Believe me.
Yeah, yeah. I know
IBM
JD
cards.
knows.
I know, I was on the bike,
card.
I was on the motorbike.
So Chief, how's your body cameras working out okay? And last time we spoke about this, you were looking at other options. Is that you settled with what you have right now is sufficient work?
Yeah, we've been satisfied with them, but like all electronic equipment these days, the juggle is it's got a useful life. And with that comes a more burdensome maintenance hardware fee that comes with it, and then non-support. So we're at that point where, we may stick with the same company, but
And
they got a
big
bigger,
ticket
better
price,
product.
a big
They got
ticket
a better product, and so we're looking at those
It's
options.
important that we have equipment, what you
Yeah,
need.
and in the
because,
scheme of things, the equipment we have in our cars, the equipment our guys go out with every day, it's the best. That's where we try to maintain.
Appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, we're going to move on to item 5, is discuss mobile food establishment guidelines and requirements.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You already got it. So can you actually go to the summary sheet, Milford? All right, so we were asked to bring a discussion to city council to talk about mobile food vending units or food trucks, as they might be commonly known. We have an increased number of food trucks that are coming into the city on temporary basis, going to our special events, whether it be the Festival of Lights, the farmers markets, or invitations by various businesses. But we also have some that have set up a permanent presence in various areas. A whole lot of them are over on Plantation Drive, and you kind of see that they're moving out from there. So it's time that we talk about how to regulate those, if we need to regulate those, such as looking at working with Ms. Borth. We have put together 2 different things that we can look at. Currently, we license food vendors when they come in, mobile food vending units. We make sure that the vehicles are movable. We inspect them before they are set up to operate or to sell food out of. They come to City Hall, we do the inspection here, and they move off to their site. If the central preparation facility or commissary is close enough, we'll even go pay that business a visit to make sure they meet TIFA regulations. And then we do on-site inspections as well of those vending units. But some of the things we might consider would be some additional requirements for the food vending units or additional requirements for the sites that they have set up residency on. Such as, do we limit the number of licenses that we issue per calendar year? Or do we reduce the length of those licenses to try and incorporate a rotation of vending units in and around through businesses? Do we limit the amount of time a food truck can stay at one location versus having to move and find someplace else? Providing some variety, not just for that community, but for neighboring businesses as well. In some cases, if you take a look at Plantation, there's a very old hamburger restaurant that happens to also be on Plantation that's in direct competition with a lot of these food trucks. Are we going to be able to look at the site placement at those locations? Make sure that they're parked outside of the right-of-way, that they're not too close to residences, that they're not using up required parking spaces for the business or handicapped parking spaces. Does it provide enough ingress and egress off that site?
Quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So what we're looking at on here is not really applicable to, say we ended up with a food court, you know, like we looked at before, and we had another citizen come. Is that correct?
That is correct. So
that would be a whole different
there's
ballgame.
two different things we need to look at. One would be an ordinance to establish zoning for a food court, and what would a food court look like, and what amenities would we require to have. This is more for the individual vendor operating on an individual commercial site.
And the food court request is going through to planners, going
First.
forward with
Yeah,
that.
so this is just looking at the individual food truck ordinance. And this is sort of set up, this sheet, what we're hoping tonight is to get, we haven't brought a draft of ordinance change or anything like that. This is just for council to discuss. You'll see further down, David's staff put together sort of what we would like to see from staff. But this is more, where you'll see the or one. It's so we can get an opinion from council, which you would prefer, so that we can then do something of like an ordinance change. Sherry can implement that, so.
So where this started at was several weeks ago. I had started talking to Modesto about that we needed to bring this ordinance back after I had started getting comments about Plantation Drive, and then also Councilman Baker brought it up last council meeting, I believe, asking about what are we going to do about Plantation Drive, that is becoming a food truck alleyway. And so whenever I was talking to staff to Modesto about it, was my concerns are a couple things. Whenever I drove down Plantation Drive is that we have one property. At that point, we had one property that had moved from just one truck to two vehicles. And they were, as far as I was concerned, they were violations of our current code because of several reasons. One is because they're required now to provide restroom facilities for the workers. Well, the brick and mortar business that was there had closed down. So the question was, did they still have access? The other problem is that the original food truck, which sits there 24/7, which I have an issue with, is it's now been, a second food truck has come in, has been put on the same property, and it is up against the property line, up against homes. So that gets into the question of what kind of restrictions, if there's any, that we put on food trucks on where they can be placed on the properties and stuff. So I already mentioned about, I feel like a food truck is a truck that comes and goes. It doesn't sit there forever. They should go back at the night to go back to wherever they get serviced and reloaded and all that kind of stuff. And all their waste is done away with or whatever. And that should be taken care of off-site. And then it was last week or whatever, when Modesto was out of town, I contacted Megan because I was driving down Plantation Drive, and now we have two properties that have more than two food trucks on them. And my deal is that unless we have a food court ordinance, that if you're going to have more than one food truck, you're going to be a food court, and we don't have a food court zoning yet. So that's why I wanted to bring this back to council, to be able to clear up some of these things, get y'all's input, of course, and see where we need to clear this up. But those are my concerns with the food trucks as it stands right now. And one of the challenges that we're seeing is that one reason why we're seeing more food trucks in our area is because other cities have increased their requirements on food trucks. And so it's pushing people over to this area.
Now, I don't think that the intent of the discussion is to discourage food trucks.
that's true.
It's meant to just provide some sort of
Guidelines.
minimum standards by which the site or the food truck needs to accommodate. In some cases, it could be improvements by the owner of the property, such as pouring a hard surface pad for the food truck to sit on, so it's not sitting on grass, like the one on the corner of Plantation and Peach, or stipulations for the food truck itself. And so there's two different avenues. So as Megan noted, if you look at the items to consider, you'll see there's a 1 or 1, a 2 or 2, and those are direct comparisons versus what can we do to regulate the truck itself, or should we regulate where the truck's going, regulate the site?
Could we entertain the thought of just having a food court instead of an individual pull up by?
That's what's in planning, correct? Is
That's
that
what's
food
in
court?
planning?
Yeah, once again, that is
Okay.
going to go to planners because there's zoning considerations and other design considerations that need to be taken into account when we draft a food court
Oh, so I
ordinance.
just want to double check.
But again, this is, what do we do about the food truck on an individual lot
And
off of a
that's kind of
court?
like, and it's kind of like what some cities have done. Some cities have gone to where, instead of being like us, to where, you know, you can work out an arrangement with a business and park your food truck there and sell, is that the businesses have come back and said, you can only do food trucks in this area of town, a specific area of town. And some of them, I don't think that they call them official food courts, it's just say in a certain specific area of town, and stuff, so.
Have we gotten much feedback from the brick and mortar restaurants about the increased number of food trucks?
So a while back, I had taken a survey when we first talked about the food court concept.
For the brick and mortar
Yeah,
people?
and they were not opposed to it, because, you know, they still said time will tell type of thing, but they welcomed the thought of having something like that, 'cause they thought that might even help encourage, you know, help their business. So, but like I said, they weren't quite sure how, you know, long-term effects would be, you know.
So with the only person who has really brought forth the idea of a food court was located over on Plantation, almost directly across from Dairy Bar. And I don't think a Dairy Bar at that time had any negative feelings towards that, at least not communicated to my office. We've had 2 other individuals bring forth the idea of a food truck court in other areas of the city, one being, excuse me, Dr. Anderson's people, and another one being the Pennies. Now, whether or not they have space for that, whether or not they have put more thought into that other than float the idea, I don't have that information, but
What location was that?
it is becoming more and more popular.
What location was that, you said?
For which one?
The one you're discussing now?
There haven't been locations
Okay.
proposed,
Kind of general.
just general ideas floated our
Okay.
direction from the owners.
I think the mayor, you know, brings up a fair point in that currently the way that we operate with the license, and we're in this discussion with the food court, if we don't put anything in place, we could find ourselves having quasi a food court. And we didn't intend to, and so we do need to decide, you know, probably pretty quickly to give planners, or at least, you know, set the standard. What is that number that a business could have, and then when does it need to transition into a food court? Is that 2, is it 3, is it 1? That's where we'll need feedback on council, is like, you know, if you have a legitimate business or a vacant piece of property that you're saying, we're okay with allowing a food truck on there, when does it start to become a court?
I personally agree with the mayor. If they're not moving every night, then it's now a food court. If they're stationary there and they're staying in one spot, then we've transitioned into something besides a food
You know,
truck.
if they're, as long as they are sanitary and provide healthy foods, you know, there's not issues with health codes. It's just potato type of thing, you know, if they call them food court or not. But if they're if they're not moving, then how they're emptying their sanitary stuff?
So,
You know, so
David
those are the
can-
questions I'm
David
asking.
can-
That's why you have
Da-
food court. Food court is gonna put all these requirements in
Right.
place
Right.
to be able to operate and so forth. That's what we talked about in preliminary discussions on food court.
David, can you explain how it currently works with the one property that has 2 food trucks on it?
The
How
one
do they comply with the laws that we have now?
Okay, so we have actually a couple of properties that have more than one food truck on them.
Let's talk about the one that has a concrete driveway instead of grass.
So the one you're referring to is over on the corner of
Peach.
Forest Drive and Plantation. So we have a truck that had been there for a really long time that sells, for all intents and purposes, prepackaged foods. They don't do really any site preparation, so their cleanup is minimal. But that does not mean that they don't have sanitation needs or whatnot. That food truck, when necessary, will leave the site and come back to the same location. I haven't seen it off property, but I'm not parked on Plantation watching it all the time. The other one that's along the fence line, which is directly up adjacent to a residential property, I've seen it move and I've seen it come back.
And do they have
But
to
it's
show
not
you-
on a nightly basis.
Do they have to show you an agreement that they can dispose of their food waste properly?
So
Do they have-
currently, as part of their annual health license, they have to submit not only a copy of their food manager certification, but a copy, an agreement with a central preparation facility, which would include a commissary, a place to unload potable water, a place to offload waste, and then a place to offload grease waste if they have it. But other than that, we don't require them to provide any other kind of documentation stating they have done that or if they have gone to there. That is also conversations we're having with our health inspector to tighten up the documentation portion. I don't think we're going to go as far as some of our neighboring cities to say, prove you were there by date stamp and a photograph, but a log sheet or some other document signed by that central preparation facility should suffice.
And then the restroom facilities, what do we require?
The employees of those food trucks are required to have restroom facilities available. We did stop and verify with those particular food trucks and that owner of that building that they have keys to that building and can use the restroom. The restrooms are not intended for patron use, only for employee use. So we did verify they had keys and the restrooms were available for them.
Okay. And then when we inspect a food truck, you inspect it, but also the fire marshal inspects it.
The fire marshal's office does do an annual inspection on a food truck as they certify the hood suppression systems and they certify the gas piping.
How often do you?
Our health inspector has an annual inspection that they do at City Hall, meaning the food truck's got to come here, and then they'll do a periodic inspection in the field.
About how many times a year?
Well, twice per year. It should be the same standard as a brick and mortar
Okay.
establishment.
Yeah, to go back to your original question is do we take an approach of putting guidelines and, let's just say guidelines on where they're at or on the food truck itself? And I think it needs to be both. It needs to be a combination of both. There's going to be some restrictions or some requirements that we're going to put on. I think that I personally think we need to shore up on the locations. And then on the other side, on the food trucks, I think there's some things we need to shore up there. Like I mentioned, and some of those things you've got listed here already, on your site, on your staff recommendations and stuff. When you start talking, the question is, y'all's recommendation is limit the number of food trucks per site. And you're saying 1 or 2 per site. And again, my deal, the reason why I was saying that 1 per site is because, for an example, at some of these locations is when you go over there and you put a food truck in a parking lot, you're going to take up parking space. So the question is do they have to get approval from us before they can say, okay, you can park your food truck here, and if we don't put a restriction on it where they have to leave every 24 hours, within a 24-hour period, they're going to sit there and they're gonna lose required parking space.
Well, in some cases, that food truck has a tendency to increase its overall footprint. You might end up with a food truck one day, and then you end up with a food truck and a picnic table, and a food truck, a
Right.
picnic table, and a receptacle, and then a canopy, and as
That's what
this
the,
thing.
that's what the food trucks at the grassy knoll are right now, okay? They're spreading out all over that grassy area, with their 2 trailers that they have there now.
So,
So I had a question.
yes, ma'am.
If you don't make them move every day, then they're not really mobile food trucks anymore. And how are they not then, I mean, because they don't have the same requirements as restaurants. But if you say, well, you don't have to leave, then aren't they just restaurants that aren't following all of the rules?
Well, once again, that's where council needs to have that discussion and help us set that standard in an ordinance format, because we haven't required them to move every day, and TIFRA only requires them to be movable.
So we only make a move once a year.
My question is though, I mean, and y'all were talking about the brick and mortar, that's what they actually are? Especially when they put out the picnic tables? That's what they're actually becoming, and but they're avoiding all the regulations that they should be following. If it's a mobile food truck, it's like living in your RV,
Right.
you know?
Right.
That's what I was saying, I agree they need to, if they're gonna be a food truck, then they need to.
If they're gonna fall underneath the food truck guidelines, they need to move within a 24-hour period. They need to close up shop and come back.
I mean,
So
that's what's fair to our brick and mortar.
Yeah, I think for sake of discussion, it would help staff if we maybe went down the list, if
Fine.
everyone would be comfortable with that.
Cool.
And if you're not comfortable with one, you know, then just let us know and we'll scrap that. We won't even look at it, but it would just be helpful. So we'll put down, maybe we can start since we just, should they have to move every day, and should that be something that we implement? And I think 24 hours was thrown out there. So if everyone's comfortable with that, I'll make a note of it, and then we can move down the list.
Okay, can we, before we do that,
Yes,
is it
sir.
okay, can we go through staff recommendations first?
Yes, sir. I don't think we've done that. I'll go
No.
through them just quickly. So we do agree that we should limit the number of food trucks per site. As the mayor stated, staff would prefer 1 or 2 per site. We don't recommend doing it by city, so doing it by number of license, as you'll see back. We also recommend the review of the site placement, as David has stated, and the mayor has also recommended. This would allow them to go to the site where it is going to be placed and look at these items that are listed, so they can check just what it would look like, make sure everything is kosher there. And then we also agree that they should move off-site every day. We would also probably recommend the 24 hours that has been suggested. So those are our 3 big recommendations, and none of those are currently in the ordinance. But everything else above could also be up for discussion. We're not opposed to anything else. It's just that is what staff would
And
recommend.
you know, the other thing that's, for me, the review of the site placement is just like whenever Raising Cane's wanted to come out at Target. I mean, they had to come to us to get approval because it was going to impact parking and traffic flow and everything like that. So that's why I think we need to be a little bit more diligent on it, or have a little bit more restrictive on it, to where we do look at the site and see how it impacts the traffic flow or the parking and
Well,
stuff of that property.
It definitely helps if the truck is mobile.
Right.
If the truck starts to become,
Stationary.
permanent, stationary, and then starts to slowly grow over time, there are some businesses that, like, Raising Cane's or the shopping centers that are permanent. We have to look at the site and say, does the existing business meet can they add this new business and still meet parking requirements? And a lot of times there's a lot of room there, but some of the smaller businesses that are allowing it, so let's take, for instance, a gas station, they could have all good intention and maybe put something on there, and now we find out that, wait a minute, they can't meet the minimum parking requirements because they were already at the bare minimum.
Right. Yep.
So just for clarification, I'm going to start at the top now. Are we in agreement of moving every 24 hours? And I think staff would recommend some sort of a log identifying, like what David mentioned, where they sign off every time they move.
Maybe I'm confused. Are we talking about 2 different things, both like individual food trucks and
No,
food?
we should not be
Courts or
talking
Courts are
about
different.
courts
We're not
at
talking
all.
about
We're
courts.
not talking about courts.
So on courts, the planning commission is going to recommend what guidelines we would put in place for a court
So
and what zone that will
This is
need
only
to
the
be.
food truck ordinance as it
Individual
currently
food trucks.
stands.
So if you
Onesies,
meet,
twosies.
if you meet that you don't have to comply with this. If
No,
you meet
correct.
whatever we
If
come
there
up
were-
with for, okay.
If there was a, let's say there was a food truck court and someone built that property, then you could probably anchor your food truck and leave it there, but then there would probably be guidelines of restroom requirements for
Sure.
patrons, there could be,
Green space, all
uh,
that.
yeah, a grease,
Sure,
a
sure, sure.
grease
Just-
receptacle.
He doesn't
So-
want you to get into
No, that's
Well,
good. Okay, I
To
just
to
wanna
answer
make
your
sure.
question also, Matt, is that there's, of the food courts that are being talked about in the area right now, is one facility is saying that they are going to require, they're gonna set up a facility where food courts can come in, food trucks can come in, they're gonna be pre-approved by the owner of the food court, but they are still gonna require the trucks to leave every night to go back to their commissary to reload and do everything, and then they can come back. But they're restricting it to only the trucks that they pre-approved come back. There's other ones, like I told staff is, if you wanna go see a good setup for a food court, setup is go to Tomball, make a road trip, go to Tomball. And the food court is actually owned by the mayor, but she owned it before she became mayor. But they have, the trucks they come in, they sign a lease for a space, and they have hard connections where they connect up, and therefore they're during their lease time. And then they have restroom facilities for everybody, and they have a courtyard and a center where everybody can sit down and eat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's
if we're
different
go-
concepts.
If we're gonna require them to move every night, for how long? How long do they have to be gone before they can come back?
Well, again, that's part of the,
I mean, some
you know,
specifics.
They have
that's
to
part
have
of the
business
discussion.
hours.
Does it take 4 hours to run to the commissary and come back, or is it, you know,
Right.
or are you off-site between 10 PM and 6 AM?
Yeah, you can, some of
So-
the cities I've looked at, what they do is they'll go over there and they'll look at what the normal hours of restaurants in the city. So if the normal restaurant hours are from 8 to 10 or 11 or 12 or something like that, they say, okay, the food truck has to leave, they can only be in operation at site from 8 to 12 o'clock at night. The rest of the time, they have to be off-site. So that's the kind of thing that we could get some data on and make that determination, I guess, is.
Okay. Is that something council's interested in us looking into?
Hours?
Hours of operation.
Hours, yeah. Another question I had about this first one. What is a site?
Yeah, so we can skip into number 1 if you'd like. So this is talking about property. So it will be one piece of property. So like on Plantation, we have multiple food trucks on one piece of property currently. That would technically constitute them as what we're talking out right now as a food court.
Currently, as it resides, it has to be a developed site, because they have to have access to, their employees have to have access to a restroom. So there's gotta be a building on that site, it can't be a vacant piece of land.
Right.
It's gotta be a building that has a restroom for those employees.
And they have to have an agreement with the property owner.
And the restroom is not a porta potty.
As an example.
And if
you-
that exists, there can still only be one truck on it.
Well, no, so currently there are no restrictions on that, so that's what we're asking, is if you want there to be a limit to the number of food trucks that can be on one piece of property.
So,
Staff's-
Not food
So
court.
for,
Not
not a
we're
food court.
talking individual.
so if you take a look at, let's take a look at Winnie's. Winnie's has a coffee truck that sits outside of it. Winnie's has a restroom available for that coffee truck. However, the building next door to that, just to the east, which used to be the old Church's Chicken, does not have an available restroom. Although it's a large site and could probably accommodate multiple trucks, the building's been gutted. It's not available for use because it's not a site that would lend itself to meeting the requirements for the food trucks. Now, if you take a look at the property line, that's what we're considering the site, a parcel.
My hesitation there stems from the fact that you might have one site that's half an acre big and
Yep.
another site that's 10 acres big. If they wanted to set up food trucks in the old HEB parking lot, Plantation and Dixie, they might have enough facilities there to have 5 trucks and enough restrooms for employees for 5 trucks. But so I don't know if you regulate it per square foot, per acre, or what. But the site as a concept to me is so.
Well, I guess my deal is that If you had like the HEB parking lot that they decided that they wanted to go put 5 trucks out there, then they would fall into, if we had a food court zoning, then they would fall into that. Because otherwise, if we go over there and we allow them to go put in 5 trucks there, then they're a quasi food court, and then we don't have the guidelines against them, on them that we would have for a food court versus individuals.
So how would it, so against my better judgment, last weekend I walked 4 miles for the About 22 thing, and they had more than one food truck set up right here in the library parking lot. I've been to the one out at McLean several times. It's one of my favorite events. Would those,
Those are
We would have it for
temporary-
special
temporary-
events.
Those are temporary events.
That would be different.
So Festival of Lights,
We would
Because
allow
they're
an
not there,
exemption.
they're not there Monday
the
through
Farmers
Friday.
Market, the Food Court Festival, those are all temporary events. We still inspect them. Food trucks have to be inspected and
Okay.
be cleared by us. But those are temporary events. They're one day, let's say 2 days, and they're gone. And the event's over.
And the majority of our food trucks hold those temporary licenses. They come in, they do their event, they leave, but it's an annual permit, meaning they don't have to come back and get another temporary permit for the next event. They just don't set up residency here as a permanent business in Lake Jackson. But there are some, like the ones on Plantation, which are there on a permanent basis. Whether they leave the site or not, they are coming back almost every day to the same location. Those are the ones we're talking about.
It's a
I
fair
want to make
question.
sure we can still do all of those things.
Yes.
It is a
I
fair
mean-
question. Yeah, I mean, does council differentiate that? Do you see a Wendy's Lounge that can probably only accommodate one food truck? And the mall,
Yep.
the mall can accommodate many food trucks. Do you want to still have it by one and say, mall, if you want to have 2 or you want to have 3, then you need to start talking about a food court.
Correct.
My opinion is if you have more than one truck there, it would constitute a food court.
I mean, you're not saying no to either one. You're just saying you got to go down a different path.
No, but I do see Mr. Broaddus's point, where if you have a large lot, maybe the requirement is based upon square footage of lot or.
Yeah, and I have no, I mean, that certainly works for me as well. If you're gonna do more than one or more than 2 or whatever the number is, that you gotta do these other food court things. But that, with the understanding that that might create additional roadblocks, because if you're not already zoned to that, the zoning is how many meetings and public hearings and all that to change the zoning from the mall parking lot from B1 or C, whatever it is, to FT1.
What I see happening is on the zoning, you're not going to set up a special zone. The council will most likely allow a food court in a zone, just like you did for tattoo parlors. So you may say food trucks, a food truck court can be allowed in these zones.
Okay.
Question, David.
Yes, sir.
What is the difference between, and I don't have anything against the market, farmer's market, the farmer's market that come to the mall? So they can just come into the city and don't have to have a permit and they can sell food out there?
No, the farmer's market at the mall and the one that sets up in the pavilion, those vendors all come through the same process. They get the permit for their mobile vending unit. Their mobile vending unit is inspected. And then they're even paid a visit on that Saturday, in most cases by Leslie, to make sure that they're set up appropriately, that they've got all their facilities. So there is no distinction between the ones at the mall and the one
And they don't
in
have
the
to
downtown.
have public restrooms and anything like that?
Public restrooms are provided by the mall. Yeah.
So we're talking about 3 things then. We're talking about the food truck area, special events where multiple food trucks can be in the same area at the same time without needing to meet the special provisions of the food truck court, and then individual food truck rules.
Yeah, I would say special events are handled already. We may add something that, food temporary events do not have to comply with, these items and stuff, because we've handled food trucks now on a temporary basis for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And we've had no problem with that. It's this kind of permanent setup is where it's starting to
Yeah.
possibly,
Yeah.
it's growing.
We just need to make sure we delineate what's
Yeah.
temporary, what's permanent.
Okay.
So
We
we,
specify three different scenarios here.
Right, 3 different sets of rules, 3 different fact patterns. That's perfectly fine. I just want to make sure we don't accidentally, I like eating Cajun food and hamburgers at the farmer's market when I go. I don't want to have to pick just one because they accidentally fall into a one thing. If that's an event, I want to make sure that events can have more than one, but, you know, just keep it all.
You want to limit choices, you know, just,
I want,
just, you
yeah,
know.
okay. And this guidance that we're looking at here is for non-special event, non-food court,
yes,
food trucks.
single. How-
Correct.
How many are allowed
Okay.
per property or per?
I've heard one said a couple of times, does council agree that we should limit one per site?
I think it simplifies things a
Right,
lot.
that's what I said a minute ago.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, I'm just kind of getting confirmation.
More than one to me is cool.
Okay.
Sure, and that's a simple way to
Yeah,
to,
make it
to,
simple.
to determine what is and what isn't.
Answers your question
Food truck.
also about square footage.
Sure.
Okay,
We're not,
so let's move
we're
to.
not we're not saying not more than one. We're saying if you want more than one, you gotta go through a different
Different route.
set of rules. That makes sense to me.
So number 2 on the list, this is the licensing that David has talked about. It's basically the process they go through to be allowed to be a food truck here. Currently, that is a year. They get it annually. Do you think that we should now ask them if they're gonna be here for a year to see their food truck twice and go through that process twice? It would just be our eyes on it more than once a year, basically.
Well, the idea would be to promote food trucks not setting up a permanent residence at one location. You can rotate those food trucks through. You can make sure that one, they are actually moving, even though we have a different method by which we would enforce that, but to make sure that we can provide some potential relief to brick and mortar restaurants as far as direct competition is concerned, allow for an influx and rotation of fresh trucks.
Okay,
for
wait, so
variety.
maybe I misexplained this. So you're either only gonna allow them for 6 months or we're allowing them for the full year?
Well, the license is really what council can decide here. Do we stay with an annual license, or do we do a shortened
But we
license?
inspect brick and mortar restaurant twice a year, right?
Yes, sir.
So I think there should be the same process for them, just because
But
they're.
the inspections are different than the licenses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so but, David, okay, so you're saying, we're not on the same page here. The 6 month, they can only get it once in a year, so they would only be allowed in city limits for 6 months out of a year.
No. I think it's a matter of saying, do we just require them to license every 6 months?
Yeah.
What
Or
benefit-
license
what
once
benefit
for
would
the
that
year.
bring versus once a year?
Well, once again, it's just a topic of conversation
Yeah.
for council to decide, is there a benefit there?
When I
And
said the
again,
first time, it's just our eyes on everything again. So it's if you see a benefit on top of the regular health inspection and everything that they go through.
But do we have enough resources to do this? I mean, if this gets to be bigger, we want to make sure we're not taking a toll on your staff time to do this.
Yeah, we would have to
licensing.
evaluate what the load on staff would be
Have we
to go
seen
through the
any-
license.
Have we seen any problems from just having it once a year now?
No, we haven't. But we haven't explored alternatives either.
I think, I'm okay with once a year, keeping it
Same.
as once a year.
Okay.
And if it's
That
something
doesn't keep
warrants
you
that
off from
you-
going back anytime you want to, though.
No,
right?
not at all. As a matter of fact, as part of our purview, we would go and do an inspection on that site during the time that they are there. And of course, if they don't meet the minimum standards, that would kick in additional visits to them. They're subject to the same inspection policy as our brick and mortar establishments.
All right,
Okay, the next thing is if there's a length limit of how long they can stay at a single location. We currently don't have a limit, so this would be the ones that you see on Plantation. Should they be allowed to be there for the full year or just permanently, I guess? Or should we only allow them for a certain period of time?
I
Well,
liked the idea for operating hours personally.
So they move every night, but they could stay there for
they
the
can still
whole
come
year.
back.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
can still
Yeah,
stay
they
the
can
whole
have it
year,
overnight.
but they have to move.
Like
So
the
is that-
mayor's saying when they go.
Is that
each
two
side.
different things, Megan? Is item 3 two different things? One being is that we go in and we inspect them and they can go sit at this property for a year.
So this idea came from my former jurisdiction, which had what they called a temporary use permit. That permit allowed us to take a look at what the business was, its location on the site, as far as setbacks to the right-of-way, were they taking up the parking spaces or whatnot. But that city allowed them to stay 90 days in any 180-day period at that location, meaning you had to have arrangements with other businesses in town. If it was a food truck, that food truck could set up here for 90 days, and they'd have to move to a different place in the city for 90 days, and then they could come back.
Is there anybody else in Texas that does that?
I do not know.
Most likely not.
That seems like a lot for y'all to keep track of.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so the next thing is gonna be review the site placement. This is something that staff does recommend. It's where we'd go out and look at the site. We don't currently do this.
Yeah, and again, kind of getting back to number 3, okay, is that I think there's value in doing the site placement. So if somebody, say if Joe's Oil Shop over here says, I want to allow food trucks to come park on my property. You come out and you inspect it and you say, okay, you can use this space here, these boundaries or wherever you want to do it, and that's where your food truck can go. And then once you've got that space available, then they can go and they can contact food trucks anywhere and say, I've got a space, you can come in and use it, just as long as you meet the city's requirements, and you have to leave every 24 hours, you have to leave, but you can come back as long as I say you can. So that's kind of where I see those two go together, 3 and 4.
together.
Yeah, and that's a very good point.
Yeah.
And David the staff may be having this conversation. Really, this conversation has to occur with the food truck and the property owner.
Right.
So in this case, when we do the licensing for the food truck, we would say, provide us a copy of your agreement with the business and a site plan showing where that's located. And then we could then go out and inspect to that site plan. Are you far enough away from the right of way? Are you far enough away from the fence of a neighboring residential property? Is there enough ingress and egress off that site? And are you taking up required parking spaces? Because Mr. Mundo mentioned earlier, in some cases, the business has just enough parking for that business type.
Yeah. What I'm saying is those, you're suggesting that the food truck drives that process. What I'm saying is that it's either a partnership between a food truck and a business, or a business says, I think it would be great to have a food truck come here and be here on weekends or be here.
I'll get it pre-approved.
And then they get it pre-approved, have them get it pre-approved, and then they can go shop it with food trucks.
Okay.
And then food trucks, as long as they're permitted in the city of Lake Jackson, they can come in and they can be there as long as the property. So the property owner takes ownership of the process.
Yeah.
So we could do that ahead of time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, they could, but y'all still need to go out there and make sure they did it correctly.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So they would
Yes.
They still come here though,
They would
right?
come here and they'd say they need to get inspected to get a space.
But the frame shop, who is a big parking lot, says, you know what? I can set this up and I can pitch my wares to the food truck down the road that is looking for a home and say, hey, I've got space. I've already talked to staff. I can do everything right here. And now he's got some rent.
Is anybody else getting hungry?
All right, you got
So-
enough on those two?
Yep, I gotta ask one other question here.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Just because it just came up with our business, like where you have some of these trucks, like, say, the coffee truck or the Kona snow cone truck, that say my company wanted to have them come through your parking lot for 2 hours. Does that factor into this scenario, or is that a whole different ballgame? Is that special event?
They're not parked.
It's a
So
good question. And
that's-
that's where,
That's not something we've discussed.
no, and it's really where I think Mr. Broadus has opened the door for discussion. And I just, I hadn't thought about it, but we do have that. We've had
Well, I
a
mean,
truck
Because-
that will bounce around every day somewhere. We'll go to a church site. We'll go to Dow Chemical, Well, I mean, every day we'll go to a place and set up.
And
Is that a temporary?
Or they may go to 5
thing?
places.
And
the coffee truck may
borrowing
go to
back
place.
to my former jurisdiction, there was an exception for a food truck that stayed less than 2 hours at a single location. You could go and park here for 2 hours, then you can move to the next place and park for 2 hours, without having, because at that point, you're not a permanent fixture on that site.
Right.
I mean, that would
call
be,
it a
then, I mean,
Moving on
I guess,
down.
But even if they're doing that, 2 hours here, 2 hours there, they still have to be, the truck needs to be permitted by the city.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
for
absolutely.
health.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
still have a
just
health
didn't think
permit.
that we never, I mean, that starts to get us into, then we're really policing an ice cream truck.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, ice cream truck, coffee truck.
Well,
whatever it is.
even an ice
Yeah.
cream truck has a license.
Well, right now, we just handle them with inspections, and unless they're setting up, you know, full-time at a piece of property, we weren't really going down that road.
Is there a way to, I mean, you say ice cream truck, I think of ice cream truck as more retail. Like, they're not making the food, they're just selling prepackaged retail items that I can eat. Is there a difference in your,
So there is. There's a difference in the health permit itself based
Okay.
upon its level of hazard. Are you preparing food? Are you preparing food that requires temperature controls? Or are you just selling prepackaged foods? That's kind of where that one on Plantation falls into. They're selling prepackaged foods. But an ice cream truck, selling prepackaged foods. The Quickie Mart, you know, other than maybe the hot dog roller, selling prepackaged foods, but they're still a food establishment. They still have a license, and they still are subject to inspections.
gotcha.
So let me ask this question, when we're going down this, I think all of us could probably think of specific examples. I'm thinking of the snow cone truck across from the high school. Does that move every day?
Yes.
Yeah,
It does, actually,
Yeah,
it
he
moves
takes
every
it.
day,
It's
and
on
they
there
own
for a
that
certain
site.
number of hours.
Yeah.
Because I
That
know
is-
a lot of them don't move every day, so I mean, if we go down this route,
So-
we're gonna start having conversations.
So you've got the ice cream truck across from, right there on Stanford. You've got the taco truck at the Dixie Food Mart. That one moves every day.
Okay.
And there are quite a few that move every day, but there's also quite
Some
a
that
few that don't.
Okay.
Now, there are, I guess it still does, where you have the backyard. Do they have a food truck as their permanent kitchen?
The backyard does have a food truck, and so does the fill station. They have a permanent in place
Kitchen.
outdoor kitchen, if you will. I mean, it's not really an outdoor kitchen because it's enclosed, but those are permanent fixtures on that site. Wheels are removed.
Right.
It's attached to permanent anchors in the ground.
We
It
don't
doesn't
consider-
mean that they could put
Yeah.
put the wheels on. They could detach it from those anchors, and they could move it at that
But
point.
right now, we
that
don't
is their
consider
kitchen.
them food trucks.
No,
Right, they're
no,
they're
those
kitchens.
are those are kitchens.
Okay, on to number 5.
Yeah.
Do you want to require any sort of site improvements, like an improved surface? Or is it okay if they are parked on grass?
Permanent
Just
power.
for example.
Is the residential no parking in yards statute not broad enough to reach, is it stuck to residential?
Can of worms open.
Yeah, the residential parking requirements do not apply to.
Trailers.
a-
Well, to
Or to a
business.
Business.
Business, yeah.
Yeah.
And this isn't something we have to include in an ordinance change either.
And maybe that's why I'm getting, I think clearly this would, well, I say that, but it seems like certainly something we want to include in any, what do you call that, the group of
court,
them?
the
The
court.
site or what, the court,
Well, yeah.
court.
Do we have any
But
of
you-
them
we're
right?
talking about doing this for individual
Yeah.
trucks that move
Do we
every
have
day.
any individual trucks that park on grass right now?
Yes.
Yes.
They
Plantation.
Yeah.
shouldn't park on the required landscaping. They shouldn't take up the grass that they're
Well,
required to have.
there's required grass, and then there's extra grass.
Right, they need to be on the extra grass.
Now,
Until
we
they
have
get
not
stuck in the
reviewed
mud.
that, but in the site I'm referring to on Peach Street, there at the corner of Peach and Plantation, there's a lot of grass.
I you get into discussion, if you're, does the requirement to move them every day make the grass parking worse or better? I don't know the answer.
Well, it could potentially make the parking worse, especially if it's well, I wouldn't even say especially. In some aspects, you have a trailer that's attached to a truck that has to come off and on. And in some cases, it's a, motor, it has its own motor and
Yes, it does.
license.
So if we step back like this part, the improved surface and the permanent power source, and kind of look more broad strokes, if you don't require concrete and a permanent power source, then we're gonna have, what is that gonna look like overall when we have a lot of food trucks? You know, is it gonna be muddy fields? Is it gonna be loud with the generators?
Right.
You know?
Well,
So-
and that's really what the discussion is. I mean, the portion with the permanent power is to try and knock down the amount of noise generated from these establishments.
Noise, winds.
Personally speaking, I try and avoid the food truck areas just because of the din of the generators.
Yeah.
I can't handle all that noise, especially over a prolonged period of time. And as much as I love the variety of going to, say, the one that was at McLean Park or even the Festival of Lights, I avoid it now. I just can't handle it. So if you are the neighbor to that and don't have a choice except to sit there all day long and listen to this generator running because that food truck needs that power source to operate their business, this is where we go back to saying to the landowner, look, if you want to have a food truck, do you need to provide power for that truck? Do you need to provide a place for that truck to park, which would allow us to say, yes, it can be there at that spot, which is away from the residents, which is outside of the driving path, which is out off the right of way.
So what is the percentage that we have in town that's working off a generator or working off power?
Mr. Baker, honestly, we haven't taken a poll, so I couldn't tell you how many that are running on generators and how
No,
many
just
are
off the
hooked
top
up.
of your head, just,
Again, I don't know the number, but as part of that, we would make sure, and the fire marshal's office would make sure that they're not attached to an extension cord laying on the ground, you know?
Just
So,
my-
did they pull power to the location where that food truck is going to sit?
From me driving down Plantation Drive, I think most of them are not running on a generator. I think they've pulled extension cords. So, my personal preference would be is that they need to be on a, improved surface, and they need to
Permanent
have
power.
permanent power.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed.
All right.
You guys,
that's what I was getting at.
That's my preference.
That's it.
Well, that will definitely get the property owner involved.
Yes.
I'm gonna group 6 and 7 together, just because I feel like it's the same conversation. Should there be a required distance from either brick and mortar businesses or from residential homes or both?
And I think as part of that, you could say, which zones could you put a food truck in? They may not be appropriate for an industrial zone, whereas they would be for a commercial zone.
What,
The only that worries me is how close they can be to a residential. So that's, I think, I would, that's where we're gonna have issues, is if we put it too close to, because, again, like you have at the one location in Plantation, they're right up against a person's house. And if they're sitting there and they're open till 12 o'clock at night, the person next door may not really enjoy that. And they didn't have a choice in that. And so.
Now, I'm gonna take a stab, Sal. A lot of the property on the north side of Plantation, would that be B1?
That'd be the only area where you have residential area, adjacent to the
Do,
north side of plantation.
and do we have concerns with the brick and mortar or the residential distance if we're going to have permanent power source requirements? Yeah, I tend to think of the noise as the biggest problem near residential.
But there's other noise other than
Sure.
generators.
You have an
That's
exhaust
true.
fan for cooking surfaces. You have just general traffic. You have patron noises. Sometimes you have music.
But there's nothing restricting the landowner from building a restaurant there and having those same problems.
Yes.
We
For
restrict,
setbacks. and-
we restrict them, so on some, no, but on like a B1A, we do have some restrictions on, they may not have a drive-through because of the speaker, because right next, that property is right next to a home, so we'll put some restriction there, and then we have time restriction, that's the only time that we have a time restriction on, so a Jack in a Box cannot be on a B1A because it's right next to a home, or if they are, then they can't have a drive-through, and they have to close down at a certain hour. That's the only time we really get really strict. And so, do we have some of those same restrictions on when it's
Would that not be built in already?
just those two things? So time and drive-through for speak. And really, that discussion was more for
There's lighting
speakers.
constraints also, for commercial sites, but that lighting should be attached to that site, not the activity.
We could look at that. What we could do is we could trigger in the ordinance to refer to, referencing the B1A restrictions, which could apply on top for businesses. Hey, you got to meet these food truck restrictions, but if you're in a B1A, you also may have to comply with something that's more onerous for like a regular business. But we'd have to look at that. It may not. The only other thing we regulated then was color, which has no bearing on it there.
Yeah, and just to give you, Matt, an example is that over on Orchard Creek Drive, where Moody Bank is it Moody Bank? And then there's
Okay.
the
Birch, on
iPlace
Birch.
Yep.
and stuff like that. When those businesses wanted to come in there, those neighbors were very vocal about what goes in next door, what kind of lighting happens, and all that kind of stuff. And I could just see, say for example, if the optometrist decided, say, well, I'll let a food truck go in here on the back side of my property, up against this fence line of this neighborhood. I got a feeling we'd be getting people walking in here telling us, why are you doing this in my neighborhood? So I think we need to be protective of when businesses back up to neighborhoods of what we allow. We need to look at, just like if they were putting a brick and mortar, we need to put the same guidelines in place.
Yeah, I would assume that was already there.
I mean,
and if
no,
that's not true, then it needs to
could
be.
It could be very simple and handled by a setback requirement.
Right.
If you're in a B1A and you want to put a food truck up, we determine what, it could be double the setback requirement of there. So if it's 15 feet, I'm just grabbing one out for like residential, it could be 30 feet. Still plenty of room on the property, but you just can't be right next to the home, on there. So we could look at that. It could be as simple as that.
So y'all could bring them back a recommendation on if we.
Yeah,
wanna
we
do
could
the
look at that
concept.
and just see, just still allowing it, but just trying to make sure that it's not an annoyance to the home that's behind there. But I just don't know what that answer is.
Okay, is there anything else that council would like staff to look at adding to a draft? This won't be the last time we talk about this. Staff will come back with something more tangible for you to look at with everything all encompassed.
Did we decide on hours of operation?
We will look at that. We'll bring back data to council like you requested. We'll look at kind of what businesses here currently do. Like if that means they have to move by midnight or what that would mean here.
Yeah, I guess I was working this whole time under the assumption that wherever the food truck was, they'd have to comply with any restrictions that were in that zone already.
There's no restrictions on the zone for time.
Yeah, as right now, we don't have a set time by which a restaurant needs to close or a business needs to close. We have TABC has restrictions on selling hours for alcohol, but that doesn't mean that they can't, that they have to stop selling hamburgers.
The local can stay open 24 hours. If they want.
Okay.
Okay.
But it's
Anything
special
else?
zoning, like if it's in the backing up a residential zone, we ought to have hours of operation.
Yeah, but even right now, take a look at Dairy Bar. Dairy Bar doesn't have to close at a specific time.
Doesn't have what?
Dairy
Have to
Bar,
close specific
and
time.
Dairy Bar backs up against residential
Right,
neighborhood.
that's right. Was there any comment from the audience? Okay.
Glenn Jones, 118 Cypress. Okay, we're gonna go through all this to develop some type of consistency in allowing single food trucks. Okay, so now we're also talking about a food court, which is way preferential to me. In fact, I guess I probably need to go to planners meetings with them and start talking about that, because we need to decide, are we gonna allow food courts everywhere? How many food courts do we want? And are we gonna continue to allow single trucks all over the places? Well, you know, they can be more widely dispersed than if we can put them all in a court. So I've kind of watched this play out here, thinking we're going to a lot of trouble, and I hear from the council they'd like to have a food court, which I think would be great, and maybe only one in the whole city. I'm not sure, that's beyond me, but then we're gonna still have to deal with this, single truck, single truck, single truck, single truck.
I think you will.
But, and then here and Frank, I'm sitting, every time I drive down Plantation, actually, I kind of think to myself, I've wondered for all these many years I've been around here, what we're gonna do with Plantation. It doesn't seem to have an identity. And I thought, well, maybe food courts, food trucks are the thing to do with Plantation. But do I want one in Plantation, and then do I want one somewhere else in the city? And then do I want more food trucks scattered around here and there?
Right.
That's my thought. I mean, frankly, I would just quit allowing food trucks until we could get food courts.
Well, the one
That would
thing,
be my thought.
my guidance to council would be, I mean, historically, we've never have limited a type of business. So if someone wanted to create a food court, we'll do what the market says. I mean, we could have one, or we could have 20, just like we could have one type of restaurant or 20 types of restaurant. I think they would most likely be the same. It's just what the market will bear. Right now, we don't know if anybody, we've had some people say they want to make a food truck court, but we don't know if they will. I mean, there may never be a food truck court in Lake Jackson, and then we still, okay, do we still allow this?
Have a whole pile of food trucks.
Or if we have 20 food trucks and one property owner wants to build a food truck court and they can accommodate 5, then,
Well, I think food trucks are great. I've always looked at a food truck as somebody comes along and they're gonna try their particular
Right.
food or drink or whatever, and if it works, maybe I'll get a brick and mortar place. Clearly, that's not really what most of them are operating under, but I just think that we could wind up with a lot of little food trucks to look after, and maybe more food courts in areas of the city that, I don't see a city that's 26,000 people needing more than one.
28,000.
28,000, I know.
Don't cut us short,
Bill
man.
left here wanting 30,000, I can remember the first time I ever met him, he said he'd leave with 30,000 people, and I told him then.
I know you're recruiting every day.
That's right.
But that's all I was thinking about, is I don't wanna see a whole lot of food courts, and I don't wanna see a whole lot of food trucks. Plantation seems to be the place, we talked about entertainment zone, maybe make that a food court zone. I mean, 'cause it clearly is a road that we have, it's a nice thoroughfare, but it just, at least in my lifetime, my 70 years, it's just never had an identity, really.
Well, just real quick to answer maybe some of your concerns is that if we go forward with some of these requirements that we're placing here, one of those being is that before a food truck can go at a location, they have to, the site owner has to go through and it has to be reviewed. They have to have power and all these type of things. That's going to cut down the number of sites that are available for people to be able to put food trucks in. I think the positive to that is that I think it will also enable us to draw a better food truck into the area and stuff. So there's some values behind there that I think that are good. As far as Plantation, there are some discussions. We're going to be discussing them through the strategic planning that's coming up here soon about some things that we might be able to start talking about what we can do with Plantation. Okay, but those will probably be a long road down. Yeah, I won't either probably because it's going to be expensive.
So, David, Megan, do you feel like you have enough feedback from council to work on something?
More than enough, sir.
More than enough. They got all kind of opinions, yeah.
I want another half an hour, but
Oh, yeah,
I'm just kidding.
all right,
So no other questions from council?
Good.
Okay.
all right. Okay, doke. Let's move on to next item. Okay, item 6, authorize city manager to waive banner permit fees and issue a 30-day extension for a banner permit as allowed in the banner section 78, 10.5F to businesses and properties affected by Phase 3 of the downtown revitalization project. I asked this to come to council because this is something that whenever 288 was coming, 332, 288 was coming through, they're putting overpasses in, and we were impacting all the businesses that were on the feeders. And so at that time, we had came back with this to say that we give an allowance to those businesses, and we did restrict it because you had to have store frontage on to be able to take advantage of this. You couldn't be, 4 blocks down from the highway to be able to take advantage of this banner exception. What this does is, if we agree to this, well then, if a business wants to put extra banners out there to say, hey, I'm open, or whatever kind of stuff, all they would have to do is come in and get a permit for a banner. There would be no fee for a banner, and the banner would be the time frame that Modesto can allow by ordinance right now is 30 days, but it's renewable. So they wouldn't have to renew the permit or anything like that. They would just say, hey, I want to do it for another 30 days. Is that
They would call up and say, can I have it in another 30 days? And if we're doing still construction in the area,
Right.
we would say it's an automatic yes.
Right.
If we finish with that phase and we kind of determine, it's like, you know what, we're pretty much out of their area, then we would say, hey, we're going to end it in the next, 20 days. We're not going to renew it again. We're out of your zone.
And this is only for businesses and properties within the scope of
Within the
work.
scope of
So within that highlighted map that I've provided you guys before, only within that
Right.
section.
Yeah, and I was talking with the chamber today and about different things that we can try to do to help businesses down there as a partnership between the two of them, or relationship between city council and the chamber. And I mentioned that we were going to be talking about this tonight, and the only question is how would the businesses know? And I would say, well, once we approve it tonight, we would send a letter or go visit them and say, this is what the change has been to allow you to do this.
Megan has every owner on her Rolodex.
She's got on speed dial. Rolodex, you're showing your age.
Ain't your age.
In my contacts.
Smoke
Anyway.
signal.
So what happened?
The smoke signal.
Smoke signals, yeah. So we've got the ordinance there that allows us to do this. I think it's just another way for us to help those businesses out down. And again, I think when we have the conversation with them is that, just don't complicate the work with banners. I mean, we don't want the street to be everything filled up with banners, but
We're probably going to have it is, they fill out the permit, they want it, and then from then on, we still funnel them to call Megan, their contact.
Okay.
Instead of where they don't have to start calling 20 different offices, just say, want to extend it, just send me an email. I'll reply with a yes.
okay. Any other questions on this?
No, sir.
Comments or anything? All right, I'll take a motion on this. I think I got one from Mr. Baker.
Second.
Second, who's going to take the second?
Ms. Rhonda said.
Seth, all right. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, move on to update on new business coming to the city, David. And
How many new food trucks are coming?
yeah, food trucks, and just want to guys, council and stuff is David's going to tell us what he knows about.
That's right.
And let's not get off into the weeds about, well, I heard a rumor of this and stuff like
Yep.
that, because we'll get off we'll get into trouble with Sherry then.
No new food truck.
No new food trucks.
Well, we don't typically know which food truck's coming. Although I like the idea of making a food truck and building one. I've got some ideas, but not while I'm a city employee. At least not in Lake Jackson while I'm a city employee. So we wanted to give you an expanded version of what we did two weeks ago. Talk about where we are on certain projects, since I know you all get questioned on them from time to time. So if we want to take a look at the first section, which is ongoing permits, these are the things we have issued permits for, they're under construction, and where we are in that process as of last Thursday, which is when we put this list together. Friday. So Taco Bueno, that is going into the Taco Cabana space. They're currently under construction. You'll see signs outside saying they're even hiring. So if you know somebody looking for a job, Taco Bueno's hiring. Next Level Urgent Care is in the framing stage. That's in the one of those new buildings.
Which
right-
one of the two? Do you know?
The one that's already finished.
Okay, the furthest along.
Yeah, the
Talking
one
about on North
closest
Street Drive?
to Grapevine, yes.
That strip mall there?
Grapevine and Winding Way.
Huh?
Yeah, the one's on Oyster Creek Drive.
Right next
They
to
got the
H-E-B.
insurance thing right in the first one, right?
No, no.
No,
No, the one in front of H-E-B.
sorry. The brand new buildings across the road from Wendy's, next to where Neighbors
Where the chicken
Urgent Care
place
was.
is at.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Further
The-
down. Further down.
The chicken place, that's,
Got you.
so, so yeah, they're currently in the process. Please don't ask me what a building slab is, that's definitely a typo. It's a slab. The Villas Apartments, all the building slabs have been poured, but I haven't seen a whole lot of action on site since. I saw the superintendent running the street sweeper in there a few days ago, and I don't know if he was just looking for something to do or whatnot, but the
surprised.
in-ground infrastructure is all in.
Yeah, I haven't driven by there in the last couple of weeks that you're saying that all the slabs are done, because I saw a lot of pipes sticking up out of the ground.
Yeah, and you're gonna see the plumbing sticking up, but all the
Instead of-
concrete,
instead of
all the
concrete.
concrete building slabs,
Ah.
driving surfaces, underground infrastructure is all in place. We're just waiting
So
for.
they were able to do it without.
Yeah,
starting at
without
4 a.m.
without starting at 4 a.m. That's exactly right.
You can't get it if you don't ask.
And the biggest thing that you'll see here is the last updated date. So anytime it comes through his office, there will be, the date will update. So if you see something that's from 2019, doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means that was when everything was received. So
Yeah.
this will help with context.
Yeah, so I mean, if you go back to the Villas Apartments, we issued those permits back in July of 2019. And that's how long it took them to get going. That's how long it took them to get to the point that they are. Now, the superintendent still is positive, sure, it's gonna get finished, and we won't have just a bunch of slabs on the ground, but.
I would say that too if they kept my paycheck coming.
Yeah.
Christian Brothers is that new building there between Don Davis and the Shell Station. That is, they should be finishing that up real soon. They're working on the final site work and scheduling their building final. Obviously, the engineering department needs to make sure that they've completed all the site work required, including the landscaping, because we never issue a certificate of occupancy without them giving us the thumbs up. The Neighbor Surgery Center, it's actually, the old Neighbors is a surgery center, and you can see some changes on the front of the building now as you drive by. That nice green facade that Neighbors put up is no longer there. But they're doing their framing as well. We've issued the permits for La Madeline. We've issued the permits for a new dentist office on this way. And where it says Arlen's White Box, what that means is the old Arlen's is now ready to start the tenant improvements on the insides. White Box just meaning it's a shell building, it's ready to go. So, new applications that we have in plan check: Family Dollar, Chicken Salad Chick, and McAllister's Deli. It'll say up there it's queued, that has, the review has started on that one. Those have not yet been issued. We're doing our plan review on them, and we're in some cases waiting for the revisions to come back based upon the corrections that we have given them. And then the ongoing plan review, these are things that long-term projects that have come through the office, they've been approved by planners, or they've been approved but have not yet started. You'll see Lakewood Manor on there.
I'm glad we jumped through hoops to get that so they could break ground. Because they haven't broke ground yet.
That's, yes.
They've had a turnover of staff.
Harmony Park,
So have we.
another one.
Yeah.
Harmony Park, and then the BBVA, the new building that they were gonna build between their existing
Harmony
large
Park
one
is what?
and. The Harmony Park was a 25 townhouses that were gonna be built over on Garland,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So we still haven't heard anything on the other townhouses that were going to build on 2004 and Old Angleton Road behind
Behind
Buc-ee's?
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. I don't have anything on that.
But they bought the land, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I know they came in and they floated a conceptual plan, but that's about as far as they've gone with
The
that.
BBVA, I'm hearing they're gonna tear the building down.
Well, this is the new building that they're gonna build, much smaller in size, because I think that they're realizing the land that they have there is worth quite a bit of money.
Right.
So they're gonna build a small building at the end of their parking lot, adjacent to that drainage ditch, and that's the one that's just kind of on hold.
Where's the land at?
That's
Right
the,
next to the Civic
It's,
Center.
it's, yeah, on the BBVA bank side of the Civic Center. There's a ditch right there.
Oh, okay.
the other one's been all kind of different banks, all the glass windows and stuff.
So the
property
most
that-
important one that everybody asked about, Olive Men.
The
is
Olive
not up
Garden was
there.
built
Harbor
several years
Freight.
ago.
Huh?
Oh, there was always a joke about Olive Garden.
No,
sorry.
no, Harbor
Harbor
Freight.
Freight.
Harbor Freight. So, yeah, that name has come across our ears. I don't have any plans for that yet.
Right now, the only plans you have for that building is the,
Family Dollar.
Family Dollar.
Yep.
And the rat infestation comes with it, no charge.
Well, that was at a larger warehouse. Hopefully, none of that. By the time they get the Family Dollar built out, we shouldn't have any of that product coming here.
Okay. All right. Thanks for-
Questions, comments, concerns?
I like the format. It's much better. You guys did a very nice job.
Thank you.
Yes, that was Megan's handiwork.
All right. Good job. All right, so we'll press on with city managers' updates. Take them in any order you want.
Anyway Street, Sabrina has hired, we had on retainer a traffic engineer from Kimley Horn, so we've hired them to do a proper street speed study, and then we'll see if there are if their interpretation of if there is a speed problem or not versus just our kind of rudimentary count. We'll use that. So we'll bring that data back to you and to the Traffic Commission.
What is roughly the price on that?
A little under $5,000,
Okay,
like
okay.
$4,926 or something. I don't know. It was close to 5,000.
All right.
But then if there is if they really recognize a problem as well, then we'll bring back to council a proposal to do a further study of recommendations on it. So this is step one. The next one, Sabrina, was he able to give you a timeline on when we could see it completion on that? Yes.
No, he has not given me the timeline. You stop that, Sal. Come up here with me. Sal tells me I have to come up here, so.
Yeah.
When I spoke with Ryan, who is the engineer from Kimley Horn, Manu was another engineer that he is working with, and he was unfortunately out sick all last week. So I need to get in touch with Ryan and make sure Mr. Manu is gotten back into the office. And then he didn't think it was going to take very long. They'd come out, they'd put some locations out at some different spots, some counters at some different spots, and just do a kind of a quick check on it and confirm what we've said, and that where he thinks the actual problem is. You know, we've had the concerns from the curve there because that's where we had the gentleman with the accident. But are they really speeding up there? Are they, when they come through, or, you know, where exactly we might have a hard problem at? And then once he has that, then he'll come back and with a few general recommendations. But then if we want to get into it further, that would be an additional, an add-on to the study.
So we've got that started. The next one is, you can stay there.
No, thank you.
Is debris. We've hired, the mayor got us connected with Betty Dom, who works for Altamira. We've had several discussions with them, and we did get that opening from TCEQ of following, you know, subchapter T requirements that I updated you on last time. So I've decided that we hired Altamira to help us roughly $9,500 to guide us through the permitting process to see what we have to do for mulching and putting it on the ground. So we're going to get that. TCQ did grant us an extension until March 31st, so we'll be working feverishly now to do that. We have open bids. We have 2 viable bidders that have given us practically the same price, and we're still evaluating that. So most likely, either the next meeting or the meeting after that, we're probably gonna either, we'll be selecting a vendor or rejecting bids and going with our current bidder, which is one of the two applicants. So, but, we're working on the permitting process now, to give to TCQ and get their blessing on it before we make an award. So that's where we are on that one.
Okay.
The last one is the calendar that Sally and Megan need to update you on.
Yeah, so the biggest thing immediately is next Monday, starting, it was supposed to be at 5. I might look at shifting it back a little bit for one council member. We're gonna have strategic planning in this room. So that'll be from probably like 5:15 until 8:30-ish, just for you to have. We're gonna send a calendar to everyone, and it will have strategic planning, any meetings we're aware of, as well as the budget meetings. But this is just for you to put in the back of your mind. The other one that Sally has for you in Milford, we're gonna have a PID workshop. Again, we'll send out an email with this, but that is gonna be on the 14th of March. We will be in here, dinner will start at 5:30, the meeting will start at 6. And it's just gonna be a follow-up. We've had an applicant, so, it will be that, reviewing that applicant's information.
So it'll be an initial review of their application. We've given them several comments. We're setting up another meeting with them. We think they still have several questions that I think that they need to fill out and address out. So this initial meeting on the 14th, the council may say the same thing, guys. You've answered 14 of the 20 questions. We need you to go back to work and answer these other 6. And so, unless, you guys, we don't have it as, we have it as a workshop. We don't have it as a vote.
Right.
And stuff, so it's for discussion, but you can give the applicant feedback at that time.
That's all we have right now, sir.
Okay. All right, so we move on to construction.
Mr. Gary?
Primarily, we have the downtown project that is progressing somewhat. They are finding a lot of, or surprising us on a daily basis on situations that we weren't aware of, because there were, underground structures or structures that aren't quite structures. And in the process, we're trying to make determinations on the fly of what it is that we're going to have to do in order to change the plans or add to the plans or change orders to those plans there. Yesterday, while they were working on the holiday, they actually broke a water line. Probably an 8-inch or 10-inch water line. We haven't decided what size it is, right at the corner of the Walgreens store. And we have had problems controlling the flow at that location. Tonight, they were going to be, as soon as the restaurants shut down, they will start working, trying to make that repair. They're going to have to be pumping feverishly that location there in order to get down to that location. It's about a 7-foot depth there, and so it's precarious to say the least. But they're going to try to do that repair.
Is that right? That's right there at the corner of OCD. And
Right at the corner of OCD, they snagged that pipe.
deep hole.
Is that why they got the right-hand lane shut down?
That's one of the locations there. The backhoe was occupying that space there in order to get to that place there, and so now they moved the backhoe further in there in order to stay away from the power lines. The mayor noted that to me this afternoon.
I did see that they were taking the safety precaution of they're putting down the
trench box.
The trench
Yeah.
box.
The trench box, correct.
That's good.
Yeah, they were preparing for that, for this move that they're gonna have to do. That's why a lot of the work in that area, in underground work, sort of ceased. some of the water line that was initiated to cross the old Moses Station or the La Bodega now is, as a matter of fact, we have lucked out in some respect as far as the excavation in that general area. We were ready. We were prepared for some tainted excavation material due to the fact that it was a gas station at one time, and we have experienced that in the past over there by the what amounts to be an armed telephone when we did that first section there. In this particular case, we were ready for it. Our environmentalist group was ready for that one. They've been at it during the excavation, taking tests of samples of that excavated material, and they have found it not to be designated material of certain level of hydrocarbons. So in that respect, they don't have to dispose of it in any form or fashion.
So that's good news.
That's good news up to now. Of course, we're heading into the we're heading back into the
Come on, Sal.
we're heading into the tainted area again, and we're hoping that we're going to be just as lucky, fortunate this time around. The water line is primarily the main focus of the underground crews at this time. The sanitary sewer has been, for the most part, already taken care of. We still may have a little bit of a problem with the sanitary sewer along North Parking Place. We still haven't made a decision on that one. That was a portion, that line was not supposed to be reworked at all. That was a slip line job. There was a carrier already inside there, but we don't know what the status is as far as its longevity, so we're going to be making a determination on that. After that, then the real work, the work that really complicates and it becomes an obtrusive type of operation is going to start, which is the drainage work, which takes place right in the middle of the street. And it's going to be sizable because those pipes or those conduits are going to be installed are of significant size. So that's going to be the primary problem that we know we're going to be encountering. But we'll just take it day at a time on those things, just like we did on the water and sewer. The canopy work is already progressing. We are finding a little bit of surprises there too, but I think those are manageable up to now. And you have seen some of the work already been buttoned down in some of the portions as they're progressing. Of course, you haven't seen the final product yet. The materials are going to be a problem. They're going to take some time getting here. But for the most part, they're going to be ready for that. The actual cladding, the finished work is going to be fast. It shouldn't take but 3 or 4 days to do that. Right now, the major problem is getting this thing buttoned up properly. So that is the downtown project that is taking most of our time. Other work associated primarily we have a meeting going that's going to be set up for Friday, and that will be on the Lakewood Manor project. We have a pre-construction meeting trying to, the new group in town, the new people that are taking over the actual construction are in. They're ready to go. They're ready to start breaking ground. And we decided to, again, backtrack and say, okay, guys, this is what we originally were expecting. This is what we're expecting from you now. So now we got a significant group of people that are going to be meeting with us here that Friday.
So this is a whole new group from that first group that said that they were going to be
It is
invested long term.
It is the same civil contractor. It is a different team, a management team that is coming in, and you just need to apprise them of what has been agreed to before and that they need to comply with. So that's basically what it amounts to, this particular project. And we are also moving on some of our own projects. The design project on the streets at Pin Oak and North Shady Oaks at all. We are meeting with the engineer to start. They have actually started the surveying process, and we've made notifications to them, to the public there, that we're going to be impacted about them seeing people there already taking information in their front yards or maybe in the backyard sometimes. So we made them aware of that one. The actual design kickoff won't be happening until this coming week, where we're going to meet with the engineer, and we're going to start discussing details on what we are expecting as far as design on this particular project. I think that's probably where we are. Is there any other ones that I need to take care of?
No, you want me to talk about
Can
facilities?
you leave us with a positive note, though?
No, we don't have anything positive
I
in
was gonna ask that
construction.
very question. It's like, do I need to have Megan come visit with Sal in the morning?
Oh, my
to
God,
pep
yes.
him up, or in the afternoon?
I need
and
to-
say everything's all right.
I need to get some rose-colored glasses from her. Okay, that's what I need.
We complement each other well.
Yeah, she's a chamber of commerce, and I'm not.
So for facilities, we have two pretty big movements forward with the facility bond projects. Library flooring I will be bringing it to you on strategic planning night so that we can get that rolling. You'll see it'll be the only agenda item that's not pertaining to strategic planning. The contractor, we have the materials picked, we have everything. I'll show you guys renderings of the final products that the library team has picked out. I've blessed it as well, but just to make sure you guys are on board with how it's gonna look and everything. But we'll be bringing that with the quote to you at the strategic planning meeting. We're hoping, they are currently wanting to get started at the end of March. So for the entire month of April, the library will be closed. We have been working with any groups that will be displaced that were using the library facility. So AARP is doing, for example, free tax aid in the building through the 14th of April. We have gotten them moved to the Civic Center. We've already held dates so that they can transition to there as soon as we close the library. So that's just an example. We've been trying to make it, and the library will have small things that they're doing the whole time as well. Then we're finding them places to be. So just to keep things rolling for them. We also, the animal shelter, we got the preliminary designs, which is very exciting. We are still on track to be finished by February 2023, which is when our contract ends with SPCA. But the preliminary designs look amazing. We only had 2 small changes from a staff perspective. Engineering had their rose-colored glasses on that day and didn't tell me no. So, yeah.
So you're gonna button up the design and then show that to council so they get one look at it?
Yes, sir. We're currently, engineering is doing surveying and all that fun work. But we have just 2 small changes being made to the design. As soon as that comes back to us, then I will bring it to you hopefully by the next council meeting. So that is moving ahead full force as well.
On the animal shelter, because we're gonna be, now we're talking about it's gonna be 2023 and stuff, is there gonna be any work up front on all the operational stuff that we can
Yes.
go ahead and predetermine policies and procedures and all
Yes,
that
sir.
kind of stuff ahead
So
of time?
we, myself, as well as the PD staff, because it will fall under Humane, which we're going to recommend changing the name to Animal Control. We will have the entire operational, what we think it should look like. We're hoping to bring that to you this budget year. So
Okay.
any requests for staff that may happen, because it will be the following year, so we'll be budgeting for that. And we'll show you what we believe operational costs will look like based on Atascosa County, which has very similar numbers to ours. And we're hoping to do it within the budget that we currently have. We might ask for a little bit more, but with the money we allocate to SPCA and the operational budget we already currently have, we're hoping to build it within that, so it shouldn't be too much of a change. But we are hoping to have everything by this budget. ready to go. So you will see all of that.
Okay.
And you said change the names. Where we're standing with the PD?
So currently, we call it Humane.
No,
No. He's talking about
Oh, I'm
renaming
so
the building
sorry.
for.
The naming of the building, yes. So we have a contractor already secured for that. They're coming up with the design right now and getting us an estimate. Soon as that, it will be relatively inexpensive, the same as Bill's was. As soon as that is good to go, I will let you know when it will be up and ready to go. But the letters are being fabricated right
Okay.
now, so.
Yeah, and Bill still hasn't paid for his sign yet.
No, yeah. Robin?
Hey, well, I have good news. So,
Good.
the flat roof at the recreation
What's that
center is
using
near
here?
The
completion.
antithesis of Sal.
I know. Well, I just haven't listened to him today, so that's just all. I just couldn't do it today. But we're near completion on the flat roof part of the recreation center. They're going to start on the little bit of the metal roof up at the very front real soon. We're still looking for March for the natatorium roof. We're still waiting on the materials for that. But that's moving along really good. I think they got all the leaks out now, so they were running through the other day when it rained, so it looks like they've done a pretty good job of even cleaning up and keeping stuff. The last portion of the Garland Park tennis court resurfacing is going to start this week, and we'll have that done, and that part of the tennis court should be done by, I'm going to say, they said March 5th. We're going to see, because I've been looking at the weather, so, it's all contingent on the rain and stuff, so they're ready to start on that.
And Robin, you told me, and I can't remember the date, the progress that the engineer's making on the pullback.
Yes, I've been talking with going through the plans. I've gotten with Sal and talking with some of our current HVAC company on that, just to see, because they know this, the building and make sure everything's on there. So I actually do have a call into them later this week to discuss a few things on the plans that they had and to go in with that too. And then I'm trying to schedule a walk through Fort Bend County, and I can't remember the other city, that our Friendswood, I think, is the one they were putting those systems in too. So that should be done pretty soon. Okay. So we're almost, near with those. I've just got to get with him on a few changes on that. And then the skate park, we should be breaking ground pretty soon, between the 28th of February and the 7th. And
Groundbreaking ceremony?
I'm still working on that. I can't find the subcommittee.
You don't have to do
Well,
it.
and I do have I ordered a big chloroplast sign to post out there, and Laura Marie helped me, make sure the wording, and it did say, this is funded
So
by
if we want to find the
sales tax.
subcommittee, we could still
We could
set
still,
up a time and invite everybody.
yeah, and Parks Board, Mayor, Council, and everybody
And do we
too.
know, is there a contingency out there of kids that use it on a regular basis that we know, or we can post a groundbreaking
I have two
date?
Yeah, I have two people that I can talk to and get some out there. I'm trying to dig through Jeremy's stuff, and he's not real organized on some of his things, so I haven't been able to
You
find
didn't
it.
say that
Jeremy,
before.
Jeremy's listening to this,
I know he is listening to me. He'll be texting me in a minute on this one too. So I was asking him earlier. I said, "Where is this?" I cannot find it. So, but we're also we're going to go with Parks Board too to start working on the rules and updating all of that stuff on there too, so we can get that together. So I am working on that. Yeah.
Let's do something.
Okay. Yeah. I'll get with Megan can help me on that, because I've
Okay.
also got the Little League coming up too.
That's good.
They haven't told me their opening ceremonies, so we need to get that together too. So.
Yeah, this weekend I threw a baseball for the first time in 20 years at the
Oh,
softball
wow. At
opening.
softball, did you? Yeah. I heard they had a good opening. So
Oh,
I know.
yeah, it was really nice. It was
Yeah.
really good to see it.
Yeah, I had flashbacks, all the kids practicing in all the fields. I mean, it was just everywhere. It was really
You
nice.
get to come out and kick a soccer ball for an opening?
I'd throw a hip at it if
Nobody's
I did
going
that.
to do the skate park. Or you can use your bike or a
Bring
rollerblade
my
thing
bike, yeah.
out there at the skate park.
Yeah.
The scooter? Yes.
Okay, now
Now you're stretching.
Yeah.
With the scooter. How's the team room?
It's good. We are in the process of really reviewing our rules and policies and things on. It's just different. I don't know if COVID mellowed us or how that went, but it's kind of like herding cats some days. But the room has been great. We really get a lot of use out of it. The kids are really enjoying it and stuff like that too. So it's a great area they can put in. So we've got video games, if you don't know, air hockey. I keep finding really cool things, but we see them sitting down playing board games, and I kind of worried about that, but they've been great. They put everything up. You know, they're better there than they are the vending area. You know, they clean up better there. So.
I've had people that are moving into the area that have called me up and have asked me if we have any board games groups in Lake Jackson. And I said, you can talk to our parks people, and they're always looking for new things. It's just a matter of getting enough people that want to do it.
Yeah, and I think, you know,
And
it's something.
these aren't Dungeons and Dragons kids
Right,
stuff.
right.
These are adults.
Right.
Yeah.
We're trying to bring in our spring programming, our next book. I want to do adult recess. I don't know if any of y'all have seen this in other towns. Kind of the organized, you know, leagues and stuff like that is just people don't want to commit, and so you know, to bring something in as an adult recess that can go play one night. And I mean, you know, the adults, they have fun. So we're trying to look for any ideas. So if that's something y'all have ever participated in, I mean, I've seen them where they get and they do like murder mystery nights or play dodgeball, or, I mean, it's just meeting up at other places. And so we're really trying to start small, but then maybe expanding with other businesses in town because, you know, it would be a fun thing. I think they enjoyed it. So.
I definitely think we should do dodgeball.
Yes,
Staff?
again,
Well,
yes.
I've seen a murder mystery night that was a progressive deal. You went from one restaurant to the other. And so they
cool.
had
That's
like
a neat idea.
appetizers at each of the different
Yeah.
restaurants and stuff, so.
So, yeah, so there's a lot of neat things. It's, trying to get it all together too, so.
All right.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Milford saying, man, you bunch of old people. Oh, yeah, oh, right, you look pumped. Yeah, right.
Two-time kickball champion.
Yeah,
Hey, we're trying to start kickball soon too.
yeah, all right. Okay. We'll move on to items of community interest. We'll go off to Mr. Broadus.
We are in the middle of early voting. You should early vote. You can early vote every day this week, Friday up till Friday, 7 to 7 at any of 11 locations throughout the county.
Where's the one in Lake Jackson?
The one in Lake Jackson is at 202 Peace Street. It is not at the library or at the Civic Center.
And they did open, some of the people, if you heard that it was crowded there before, at the very beginning it was, but now they've opened it up to
Bigger area.
the bigger area.
Correct.
The
Correct.
courtroom.
They're in the courtroom now instead of the closet that I
So,
voted in.
so it works out real well.
Broom closet.
No reason not to
Broom
go,
closet
7 to
before.
7 every day this
Broom closet
week.
When I was there.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been smaller than the staff meeting room. We used to a long time ago. That's where early voting
It was
was.
pretty small.
It was in the staff meeting
Oh,
room.
man.
It was small.
It's pretty small.
Was it?
It was.
Oh, yeah.
All
A
right.
little bit bigger than the broom closet.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, the only thing that matters is early voting. Make sure you vote. Numbers are down. I will say numbers are down. Lake Jackson numbers are down as compared to the last midterm in 2018, so we need to get them
It's
back
down
up.
across the state. The state's in really bad shape.
We're going to get them up here.
That's right.
We're getting ready to have a conflict of interest.
I know.
Early voting is very important. Just do
Vinay?
your civic duty. I'm done.
All right, Vinay doesn't have, okay. Nothing. JB?
Only thing I know, I'm gonna bring a jacket next time.
Oh, man, it's cold in here.
All right, just real quick, I had the opportunity to, last week, to go to one of our local homes, retirement homes, you know, for senior citizens and stuff. And I met a gentleman by the name of Abram Washington, and, I mean, Aubrey Washington. And they invited me because of,
They know you fixed that.
for Black History Month is this month, and he was born in 1933, and he was a councilman in Sulphur Spring, Texas, and he's met 5 presidents, and he's just a wonderful gentleman. I mean, just a great individual to sit down and talk to, and I really enjoyed talking to him. What I wanted to say is that he gave me, he walked up there and he said, I've written all these different things. He's been a minister and all this kind of stuff. And he said, I just love sharing my, you know, what I've written and stuff. And so he gave me this quote, and I think it's a really good one. It says, when we go out into the world each day, let us love the people that we meet. Let our speech and our smile be comforting to others. A smile is like a magnet. It draws others to you. So just wanted to end the meeting with that.
Good deal.